everybody, welcome to Kimmel's Irish Pub. Time for another movie review. Tonight's movie, God's Not Dead, In God We Trust. So I think, I'm going to say the fifth installment of these movies. There was 1, 2, and then there was, I don't know if it's the same time, no, and then there was, sorry, the third one, God's Not Dead, We the People. No, that was next. I'm sorry. All over the place. We the People's one, and then there's God's Not Dead, A Light in the Darkness. So that's 3, 4. I think this is the fifth one, if I'm not mistaken. You know, I honestly, I used to really be heavily into faith-based movies. I like them a lot. There's a lot of good ones out there. Facing the Giants is one that comes to mind. Courage or Courageous is another one. All good stuff. These are a little different. Those are, you know, a lot of them are, you know, stories about people who fall away from God and then something bad happens and they got to find their way back. My wife never liked them because there's always tragedy and it makes you sad. You know what I mean? These aren't that same. I mean, David A.R. White has been in a lot of different faith-based movies. Dean Cain is in this one as well. Ray Wise. Scott Baio is in it. How about that? And that's all I recognize. I'm sure I'll recognize others as I go through it. But the premise of this, so if you saw God's Not Dead, that was based on like a true story, the first one, about a kid in college. And he says something like, prove that God exists, or something like that. And I don't know, there was a way you can get an A. I forget the whole story, but it was like you can get an A without doing anything. Or if you want to prove it, you know, you're going to fail. Or it was something really weird. And again, took a stance to try and prove that God's dead or something like that. It was okay. But this was amid a political and spiritual turmoil. Reverend David Hill steps up to run for Congress. Opponent Peter Cain aims to erase religion from policy, and fight becomes a beacon of hope for the people seeking moral leadership in a divided world. I know. It's actually 2.7 on IMDb. I mean, 805 people rated so far. Now, it could be a really bad movie, or it's the two things you should never talk about, politics and religion, all wrapped up into one, and maybe that's why people don't like it. I mean, the original one, 4.6. I didn't give it a rating on here. I didn't give it an IMDb rating. It came out in 2014. Didn't switch over to IMDb until 2016. But anywho, there we are. I know this isn't going to tickle a lot of people's fancy. Might just skip this review, but I'm going to give it a shot and see if it's any good. I always like David A.R. White, even in his other stuff. He's in a lot of other faith-based movies, and you know, you got to like people who just stick with, you know, that genre. I'm sure he's, you know, committed to it, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm yapping on here. Let me get into the movie, see if it's any good, see if anybody else will like it. Stick around. I'll let you know. Hey everybody, we're at the credits of God's Not Dead, In God We Trust. And I know it's not going to be everybody's flavor, right? But here's what I will tell you about it. You know, obviously it's very heavily in religion and politics. You know, now it's not, I think it's well done in the fact that I think it'll appeal to a lot of people. What I think a lot of people don't like, you know, is like heavily prayer and all that stuff. That's not in here. I mean, God's in there, but it's not like, you know, that type of thing. But really what they're trying to do is like, you know, I don't know, they try and make the debate of somebody who wants to get religion out of the government versus a pastor who wants to, you know, keep religion as part of the government. So that's the whole political stance of it. And they take a guy, David A.R. White is the character, right, who has this, I don't know, I guess he stood up for something in some courtroom and had this great speech. The leading candidate that was supposed to battle the other guy passed away. So it's like, it's you know, oddly enough, it's, you know, like they gotta find a replacement rather quickly because the other guy's just gonna win and they don't want the other guy to win, so they go and find this pastor in a small town, and I think in Arkansas, that, you know, is outspoken, and they have him enter the race, right? And so they bring in their best, I don't know, campaign manager. That's what it is, campaign manager. Which is interesting because her name, I didn't realize it at first when I was watching it. I was like, okay, I have it right here. Samaire Armstrong even looking now at her picture on here, I didn't know who she was, but she plays his campaign manager, and I was like, she looks so familiar. And then finally piece it together. If you ever watched Entourage, she was Eric's girlfriend in the beginning, like in the early part. She was Ari's administrative assistant, and they started dating. And that's who she is now. She looks like, you could see it when you put it together, but at first, because she's like blonde, short hair in Entourage. She has black hair. She's obviously a little bit older now than she was then. And I was like, wow, okay, so she's in that. So I thought that was interesting. And, you know, like I said, Dean Cain's in it, very small role. He's just a money guy, just giving money to the campaign. Scott Baio, interesting enough, plays the campaign manager of the other guy who wants to take church out of the government. So that's who everybody plays. And so I thought Scott Baio's like reputation was bad, and for him to play like a villain, I don't know. You know, I feel like no, make me the good guy. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But here's what I will tell you. I don't think it's going to appeal to a lot of people. And what it did for me, one of the things about politics, I don't do politics at all. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. And part of the reason, probably the biggest reason, is mudslinging. Right? Every time I turn on the TV, I don't hear about like, sometimes you hear about how great somebody is, but it's all about, you know, slinging mud at them. Everybody. I mean, people running for Congress, president, whatever it is. Instead of just, you know, like I wish they could just eliminate that. And that's what this movie kind of is like trying to say, right? So a pastor, he's like, I don't want to do any of that negative stuff. I just want to be positive. You know, and I just want to try and win it that way. And of course, the campaign manager is like, you can't win that way, so on and so forth. So, I found that interesting because I was always wondering, like, could somebody just go out and do that type of campaign, ignore all the negative stuff? And maybe people have, but can they win like that? Because it's just, you know what I mean? I don't mind saying, hey, and the biggest one is like abortion, right? Okay, well, this person, because of the party, which makes no sense either, they believe in abortion, whereas this party or this person doesn't believe in abortion. Okay, well, that's fair to say that. That's a stance that they, you know, they disagree about taxes, or, you know what I mean? That's fine. But when they come out and they're like, hey, I don't know, all the other bad stuff like that people do, you know, I don't like that, you know. I think it's also silly that the party decides whether, like abortion, and that's your stance, and then that's it. Well, just have your own thoughts. What do you think you should do? And anyway, now I'm going down a path. That's why I don't get into politics. It's just whatever. And I know probably people are like, I'm glad you don't, because you don't know what you're talking about, which I don't. Back to the movie, which I don't know what I'm talking about there either. You know, I felt it was good. I think for me, what I wanted a little bit better, because there's going to be debates, right? And obviously the existing candidate, the candidate that was already there before, has a political background. So they know how to do debates. They knew all the tricks of the trade to get things there. But when they really get into the debates, I don't know, I didn't feel that David Ayer character or whoever wrote this didn't give me like, oh my gosh, he just dropped the mic kind of thing. Now, when you see, and they go back to the YouTube video or whatever it was, when they saw him in the defending something or something like that, and that type of speech, you know, very passionate, a lot of energy, but it also like rang true a little bit more. I know it was only pieces of it, but it was like that's what made him become the candidate. And then when he is the candidate, I was waiting for something like that that's just really gonna, you know, stop people from like, wow. You know, it just didn't do that for me. The passion was there and the energy, but I don't know if what he said, you know what I mean? It just basically go vote. It's just what he said. So, I don't know. Tough message. And then they show at the end of the screen like 40 million Christians don't vote, and 15 million aren't even registered or something like that. So, wow. So, like 25 million of them are registered and don't vote. But, whatever. There you go. A lot of stuff in there. I even like the one guy he's the driver. He's like the limo driver, and a waiter and an actor and stuff like that. And he's like, I hope I won your vote. And he's like, I don't vote. I don't think it means anything. He's like, but I will join your church. And I was like, you know how many people think that? You know what I mean? So I thought that was interesting. So, and I thought I want to say dumbed it down for people like me who don't know politics, but it was that kind of same thought, right? I mean, like, again, why use dirt? Why sling mud? Just stick to what you believe in. And like they're saying, you won't win. But you never know, right? I don't know what happened at the end of this movie, but you'll have to check it out. So, if you're really into politics, you're not going to like this movie, right? Because I think I don't know. I think people who really understand politics are in it are going to be like, this is kind of like, I'll say beneath them. Like for me, it's like, okay, it's easy for me to follow. But if you're like big into that, I don't think you'll like this movie. And, you know, if you're not a faith-based person and you don't want to hear a lot about like God and church and state, you'll want to stay away from this. But if you're like me and has watched every other God's Not Dead movie, you're probably going to watch this one anyway. If you're a fan of David A.R. White, you know, maybe you'll check it out. And now you know what it's about a little bit more. So, alright, that's all I got. I don't know if I was helpful, but I do appreciate you tuning in. And see you next time. Kimmel's Irish Pub.